My crafty friends, it's Beverly here over at Crafting Chaos, and I'm here with another video for you with the third day of Christmas in our Christmas series for 2019. This is the file we're aiming for. Let it snow. The snowflake and the greeting are drawn, and we've got a punched out ribbon border that you could use. The same sort of idea to make your own ribbon borders. So let's get started. We're going to start with a square, and we're going to take off the maintain aspect ratio, and I envisage this card being a 5.5 by 5.5 inch card square. So I'm going to make it 11 inches wide and 5.5 inches tall. Oops, 5.5 inches height. And that's the main card. We're going to move it off to the side. The next thing I'm going to do is create a layer for our card. So I'm going to bring on a piece like so. I want it to be roughly 3.5 inches wide, and I want it to be approximately 5 inches high. So I'm doing it exactly actually, but there you go, whatever suits you. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do some notching out for the edges. So I'm going to bring on this rounded square, not that one, this one, sorry, that's rounded enough. Okay, so then I'm going to go on to the fourth option here and say snap to grid, and I'm going to take it right down to 0.25 inches. So I'm going to just show you what happens when we do snap to grid. So basically, now when I move this square with my arrow keys, it snaps it to the next grid line, which is 0.25 inches apart. So I'm just going to shrink this square down that we've got here. So I'm going to maintain the aspect ratio and we'll shrink it down to 2 inches. And what we're going to do now, using that snap to grid function, I'm going to fix it so that it's 2 squares down by 2 squares across exactly. And I'm going to make 3 duplicates, and we're going to do that at each corner. So I'm just going to position it roughly by moving it on the screen, and then I'm going to use my buttons to position here. So just get it exactly. So we're going to layer fit to mat, so we can see where we're at, and most of only have done 2, so I'll just do another one, and again we're going to position that like so. So now those are all in position. We can select them all and we can go edit, process the overlap and subtract. So that's effectively notched out our corners to give this sort of look. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an offset. I need to go outward. I'm going to go 0.08 inches, and I'm going to keep a bevel, and then I'm going to say OK, and that's where we're at. So now we've got our top layer and bottom layer. So the top layer I'm going to make a darkish colour just for the purpose of the video, and layer centre back. In my actual card I cut this into mirror card, and then the front layer I'm going to make it a nice pale blue colour. So that is, and I did choose a pale blue if you remember the card that I showed you. So the next thing we need to work on, so I'm just going to bring this across and put it on our main card like so. Next thing I'm going to talk about is the snowflake. All I did for the snowflake is, I'm just going to bring on that top layer because that's the one we want, is I traced a snowflake from the internet. I looked and found some free images, traced it using the tracing function, and then changed it to draw once I'd got it set to the size that I like. So now all that I need to do is position this by bringing it to the front, and I'm going to position this on the front of my card. So let's just layer it centre, oops, not that, edit undo. So let's just select both and line them up centrally and vertically initially, and then I'm going to select the snowflake and scooch it up so that I've got room for my let it snow sentiment at the bottom. So next I'm going to choose the text icon. I'm going to type the text let it snow, which is what I chose, but you could choose whatever. And I'm going to select a font, and I wanted it to be quite a contemporary font, so I'm going to choose one that's got a very fine line but is also going to be not too modern, not too old-fashioned, oldie-worldy looking. I want it to be quite contemporary, so I'll try that one, and I'm quite happy with that one. I'm going to see what it's looking like. It's definitely spaced far enough apart for me. I'm going to just make it a little bit narrower. I like the height of the letters, and I'm going to just position this by eye onto my card front. And again, this was what I did. I'm just going to scoop that snowflake up just another little bit, and I'm going to select everything, and I'm just going to line that up centrally, so the center axis like so. Okay, so then what I'm going to do is check that my snowflake's on draw and my sentiment is on draw, and that is now as I want it, so I can move that back over to position with my card front here. Okay, so we can sort that out later. So the next thing we're going to work on is the ribbon. So to do the ribbon, I brought on this, no, not that one, sorry, this one, a zigzaggy rectangle thing. I don't really know what you call it. Now if I stretch it out, the zigzags get too big. I didn't really want them to be that big, but if you're happy with that, that's fine. What I would do if you wanted to keep them smaller is, and you could do it either way, so I'm going to do it both ways. I'm just going to duplicate it, and I'm going to line it up to the middle, and I'm going to make sure it's overlapping perfectly with one of our squiggles, if you will. So it's not quite there, so we just need to take off that snap to grid function. That way then we can maneuver it really just one little bit at a time. I'm going to select them both, edit, process the overlap and weld. So now we've got a ribbon, and that is 2.5 inches high and 7 width. So we want to rotate it. Well, actually I'll resize it first. So I'm going to first of all bring on a square because I want the edge to be straight. So I'm just going to line that up to the edge. Just going to get that snap to grid back on again so that I can line it up right to the middle of that one and select that. I'm just actually going to duplicate that square to save me having to do it in a minute. Select both, and we're going to process the overlap and subtract. So that's chopped it off at one side, and then we're going to do a similar thing over here. Get it snap to grid, and I'm just going to take that snap to grid off the function just so I can get it, whoops, so I can get it right in the middle of that dip, if you will. So again, I'm going to make sure that that shape's on top and select the other one, and then we're going to go on the second icon, edit, process the overlap and subtract. So now we've got our basic ribbon shape. I'm going to rotate it by 90 degrees, sorry. So that's our ribbon. I want it to be 1 inch wide. Height needs to be 5.5 inches, which was originally the width, and the height wants to be 1 inch. Oops, maintain aspect ratio before you do that. So that's our ribbon for running down the side of our card, and it's just exactly the right size to fit from top to bottom. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, I'm going to bring on a slightly different shape than what I did in my last effort. I'm going to bring on an oval, and it doesn't really matter this because you would get something different every time. And I'm going to bring on that teardrop shape. Now I'm just going to work with this one first of all. I'm going to shrink it down, make it narrower till I'm happy with it. That's okay, I'm happy with that. And then I'm going to rotate it by 45 degrees. I'm going to duplicate it, flip it on that axis and move it to the side like so. Then I'm going to line both of them up together at the bottom so one is directly next to the other at the same angle. Now this one again, I'm going to shrink it down, I'm going to make it longer but keep that fatness there. I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to move it into position. Just going to make it slightly smaller than it is so it's a little bit chunkier but not as tall. Oops, not that much. Just make it a little bit bigger again. And I select both, line it up, oops, no, I haven't grouped them. If that happens, all that I didn't do there was just group those two together, layer and group, and then I can do the centering like so. And if I wish, then I want it to be just a little bit narrower and taller. So I'm just going to do that again. Now that I'm happy with that, so I'm going to select both layer and group, and then I'm going to shrink the whole thing down so that it fits in my ribbon, like so. So I'm just going to need to go a little bit smaller, and we'll see how that goes. That seems to be working fine, so we're going to centre them. That'll be working okay. Now just move that off for a second. Now I'm just going to make several duplicates of this, more than I'll need to do this thing. I'd rather have more than too many than too few at this stage, because I'm just going to stack them by layering them central and vertical. Then I'm going to start with it at the bottom, so I'm just going to line everything up to the centre like so. Then I'm going to take the top one and scooch it up. Now actually I'm going to take that back down, and I'm going to turn on the snap to grid function, and I'm going to scoot it up to near the top like so. Then I'm going to do the same with this one, and I'm going to stop so that we've got a gap between them, and hopefully, because I'm using the snap to grid function, the gap should be exactly the same between each of my cutouts. So again, just scooting them up so that they're the same distance apart from each other. And like I said, when we get to the bottom one, like so, I'm just going to delete that one, delete, delete, till I get to the last one. And that one, I'm going to edit undo that last delete. And what I'm going to do now is again scoot that up so it's the same distance away from the others, and all I'm going to do then is line them up to the centre. I'm just going to just move that off to the side now that they're all the same distance apart. I'm going to layer and group them, and then I'm going to select both of those shapes and line them up centre and middle. So that's now put that punched bit right smack in the middle of that, so I can select both of those, process the overlap and subtract, which has now effectively punched that out. Oops, all I've done there is just double click. So I'm just going to select it and give it some colour, and then we can build our shape together. So we've now got our base card, which for the purpose of the video I'll make a pale grey. We're going to do our score line now. So again, to do the score line, it's easier if you put it on snap to grid, because it means you'll get a nice straight line. When you hold your shift key down and pull out, double click to anchor, change to a dotted line at the top to make it a perforating line. Then we need to deal with the size. We know our card's 5.5, so 5.25 should be perfect. So we'll change that. We're going to select both of those now, and we're going to centre, oh no, sorry, I didn't mean to do that one. We're going to select both of those, both the score line and the card, centre and middle, and that's put our score line right in the middle where we want it. We select both now, layer and group, so that now we can move that one freely and independently. I'm now just going to turn off this snap to grid so that it'll allow me to move things where I want to go. So I'm just going to select that one, layer, arrange, bring to front. I had that running down from top to bottom on my card there, like so. I mean, obviously you'll be doing this with your own. And this one was my matting layer, arrange, bring to the front, like so. So that's going to go to that side with some gaps, a nice border around. And then finally we've got our Let It Snow panel, which we need to bring across. We need to first of all group temporarily, group and layer, bring to the front. That will allow us to position it, just for the purpose of the video, to see what it's going to look like, of course, because obviously all this is done by hand. Then ungroup it, and that's what we're left with, the Let It Snow. And all I did was cut what I've done dark blue in Silver Mirror card. I cut a cream card base, and I also did a card base for just check. And I cut the top layer in a pale blue, did the writing in a dark blue, which was just the blue that came with the Scan and Cut. I'd put a largest gem at the centre and scattered some gems about, and finished it off by putting some baker's twine just to give it that sort of a rustic edge. So that was today's card, Let It Snow. You've seen it at the start of the video, hopefully. I hope you've enjoyed watching the video. We've got quite a few other cards coming up. We've got a shaker card and a gingerbread house card coming up for our 12 days of Christmas. So I hope you'll keep watching and keep supporting me. Remember to tell your friends where I am. Give us the thumbs up to the video and comment in the comments below, and if I can think on, I will leave a link to my blog in the comments below. So if you click the down arrow underneath the video, that will then show you the links and also any comments and things that I've made about the card. So remember, if you wanted further advice on how to trace elements, I have got videos on that on my channel, so feel free. That said, now I think we're just about done. Thank you for your continued support, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Oh, and by the way, please excuse my froggy throat today. I have the worst cold this week, so I am just getting to the tail end of it. Alright, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.